I'm Saul Koschitzky, and I'm one of the founders of the Bnei Akiva schools.
I'm Phil Schwartz. I was one of the founders of the Ulpanat.
In 1973, when I had a son that's ready to go to yeshiva, Nachman Sokol came to us and said, listen, if you want to start the school, I've got a building and I've got a Rosh Yeshiva for you. Myself, Phil Schwartz, Aaron Frankel, Nachman Sokol, my brother Henry, and Itz Feldman Zal agreed, and the yeshivas got started. Mrs. Agi Sturm had a daughter, and she was very interested in a girls' school.
The late Agi Sturm, Zechrona Levracha, went out and found a location for us against all odds.
There was really two reasons that we wanted a different school. One was the Zionist connection, and two, we felt that secular studies are important.
For me, it was two things. First of all, it was selfish in that I had a daughter who was of the age and she did not want to go elsewhere but to a Zionist school. And in addition to that, we could see the nature of the community, that for it to continue to be a growing religious Zionist community, it had to have proper education.
The most heartwarming memory is when you have your child graduate from the school. All my kids went to the school. One of my children who lives in Toronto, my son, had 5 kids graduated from the school. So I don't have the next generation, their great-grandchildren, they're not old enough yet.
I am also told that our school, the Ulpana, has produced more aliyah than any other institution going per capita. I would like to thank the many people who made sacrifices both financially and time in building the school.
We, the old-timers, were able to retire, and a new crop of directors have taken over, and they're doing as good a job as we did. Or maybe better.
Naomi Jacobs Brownstein. I graduated in 1979.
My name is Karen Goldberger, graduated in 1980.
My name is Gabrielle Mandel Klein. I graduated in 1980. Seems like a long time ago.
Since graduation, I went to law school. I became a lawyer. I practiced in Toronto. My husband and I made Aliyah with 3 children in 1993. We had one more child here.
I got a degree in science and education. Just last year, I started doing my master's in Tanakh at Bar Ilan.
In the year 2000, we moved with our 5 kids to Efrat, and we've been living there ever since. And we have 6 kids living here in Israel with us and 2 grandchildren. And I work as a family doctor in Beitar.
I launched a not-for-profit crowdfunding platform that matches donors with Israeli families in need. That's called TenGov.
I've been volunteering for the Army.
I've been very active in my kids' schools all along.
I remember Mrs. Marcia Raisin, who was an outstanding history teacher. I remember Mrs. Friedman, our English teacher. I remember Mrs. Sandberg, who taught us medieval Jewish poetry.
I'll start with Mrs. Friedman, who was our English teacher, who had a great influence. She was always very warm and very available to us and taught us a lot about literature. Mrs. Goodman, the French teacher, all the French I know, and all the interesting experiences and life lessons from her I learned. And I do know French. When I go to Paris, I do know French from Mrs. Goodman. I remember Rav Tabori very well, and subsequently I knew him in a lunch fit when I moved to Efrat. I also remember Rav Kahana very well. As I remember the first day of school in grade 9, he gets up on the board and he writes, Zacharti lachesed nuraich lechtei chachrai b'midbar. And I'll never forget that. And every time I read that pasuk in davening or anywhere that I read it in Tehillim or in the Chumash, I remember Rav Kahana and his explanation, and never really understood that pasuk. And I always remember his teachings.
The most major world event that I recall was President Sadat of Egypt's visit to Israel at Menachem Begin's invitation. The school gathered and we watched on TVs, not really sure what to make of it at the time, really being a mixture of surprised and wonder and excitement.
I was very active in B'nai Akiva. I was a real, true religious Zionist, and it was my dream come true when I moved to Efrat. And I came in 2000. It was actually the time of the Intifada. It was a very difficult time, but my strong Zionist, religious, kind of from the 70s Gush Emunim movement ethics kept me in Israel. I think a lot of those ideals were planted and the seeds were grown in Ulpana, and I'm forever grateful to the institution.
Gratefully, I've lived my life here and raised my children here.
Ulpana is an amazing institution that gives each girl the confidence, the ability, the tools with which to go out into the world and make her own way.